all the things that we do as a human being can be described through an iceberg kind of analogy. And on this iceberg, the top part of it, and this one is kind of designed for teachers, so you look at if a student is in your class, what's the student going to do? They're going to do things like this, right? Problem solving, work in, kind of perform in CCAs or take part in CCAs. They're going to be relating to people, especially when they get into high school. They're going to have a lot of relationship issues, whether with their parents or with their friends or with the person of the opposite sex. And then they're going to have to make decisions. They're going to have to do all these things. And this is actually the tip of the iceberg, really, because this is what you see. This is what we see. This is what the parents see. This is what the teachers see. But what we don't see is really at the bottom of the iceberg. It's what's at the bottom of the iceberg. The top of the iceberg is where we traditionally thought we could change them. But it's not going to happen. Years and years of research have shown us that it is not possible to change the top of the iceberg permanently. What you need to do in terms of permanent change is change the bottom of the iceberg. And what's the bottom of the iceberg? All those things that stated there. The ability of a child or a student to manage impulsivity, to make good decisions, to collaborate and think interdependently, to apply the past knowledge of what they've learned in science and history, geography, into their present situation, right? The ability to think flexibly, and so on and so forth. And so, about 22 years now, 1997, I met a professor by the name of Professor Arthur Costa, and he spoke about these strategies for problem solving and thinking. And one of these is what he called the 16 habits of mind, which I'm going to introduce to you in less than 10 minutes. And what are these 16 habits of mind? He said his research into problem solving, and he said, I was wondering, he said, how do people become good? And I said, what do you mean by good? He said, good in terms of moving up their so-called field of expertise. So whether you are a cook, a chef, a business owner, a driver, anything, right? How do you get from being an average person in terms of performance to being the top? And he did that research, and he found out that regardless of race, religion, nationality, chronology, meaning whether you're working in the year 1990 or the year 1500 or the year 2025 or the year 2050, you're going to need all these habits. These are the habits that define what you're good at, that define the top of the so-called the top performance. So he said, what are these? It transcends, like I said, all those things. So the habits are persisting. He said, people who are at the top of the profession, they persist. And we kind of know that. But then, in school we teach persisting too. And sometimes we teach persisting in the wrong way. By simply telling the child or the student, oh, you've got to try again, you've got to do it again. I did it 10 times, 15 times, 20 times, and that's why I'm now, a successful adult. But what they didn't know is that persisting is not simply doing the thing over and over again. Because if you do the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, that's called craziness. And that's what drives us crazy too. So you have to find a way to use strategies to persist. Try it this way and didn't work. Maybe the second way, I change it a little bit and I try it again. And definitely over time, it will work. Guaranteed. If you know how. Managing impulsivity, this is again another thing that now have come up to the forefront of research to say that the way to tell whether your student is going to be successful or not is whether your student can manage impulsivity, manage his thinking, right, impulsivity, decision making, and be able to delay gratification. So this is a better predictor of success than IQ. And there are others, listening, understanding and empathy, thinking flexibly, thinking about your thinking in terms of metacognition. And quite often, students are not even sure and clear about why or how they are thinking. And It's very simple logic. You can never change something that you cannot see or manage. Very simple. You cannot change something that you cannot see or manage. Imagine in this room, if we talk about the air conditioning, you say, I do not know how to, I cannot see it and I cannot manage it. How can I change it? I cannot change my environment. But because today we know that there is a composition of air, in terms of oxygen, nitrogen, and so on, air has weight. Air can be changed, can be compressed, can be, the temperature can be altered, and that's why we can control the temperature and the air quality in this room, whether it's humidity and so on. And thinking is like that, it's invisible. A student, or your friend, or anybody else, say something, do something, produce something, you do not know what is the background to that. So metacognition is now one of the cornerstones of education in terms of how we teach children. And this has kind of gone into classrooms at preschool level and beyond. So I spent the last 3 years of my life working with a group, which I'm now part of, to bring these ideas into 4, 5, 6-year-old classrooms. It was a very big challenge. And initially, I went, being a bit naive and said, yeah, I've done it with primary school, secondary school, I've done it with adults, why can't I do it with a 4-year-old child? And I was so wrong. That was the uncertainty that kind of popped up. But after about a year and a half, we discovered, after trying many, many times in different ways, a way to do it, and we did it successfully because we saw the results. Parents and teachers who wrote story after story about how children changed the way they think, and the way they perform, and the way they behave at 4, 5, 6-year-olds. And that's partly through thinking about the thinking, striving for accuracy, questioning and problem posing, applying past knowledge, many stories that to share, and one very famous one, it happened about maybe 13 years ago, was about this girl. I think she's like 11 or 12 years old, and she studied geography in the class. I think this happened, I'm not sure whether it's in Phuket or one of the beaches when the tsunami came, and she recognized the signs and she told her mother, please run, because this is a tsunami. This is a 11 or 12-year-old child who studied geography and applied it to her holiday when she was in near our part of the world, and it saved the life of her family. Thinking and communicating with clarity and precision, and gathering data through all senses, creativity, responding with awe and wonderment, taking responsible risks, and in this new world, we really need to take risks, whether you like it or not. Even not doing anything is a risk. Finding humor, which is something quite interesting because I thought, why is humor so important? And then I did a lot more research into humor, and I realized it's such an important part of our lives. Actually, it keeps us from going crazy and relieves stress. It helps us to really bring across a lot of points in situations that you cannot do any other way. And finally, remaining open to continuous learning. And this has become almost like a carrion call by all governments that please do not stop learning, because the day you stop learning, that's the day that your world will collapse around you and you become a dinosaur. More so now than 10, 20 years ago. So these are the 16 habits of mind, and this is what I've been doing for the last 22 years, researching, analyzing, sharing, helping schools to bring that into the classroom, helping universities to bring that into the graduates and undergraduates, and also literally just sharing this with parents as well. Because I believe that this is what's going to make the difference for us as a society going into the future. So I'm going to now show you some things. Just let me check my time. We just have the right amount of time left. I'm going to show you some questions which I would like you to ponder with me about. And then I'm going to try to bring this into reality and apply it to some of these questions. So here it is. No, before that, let me just show you something about this question. So this is a primary 5 work. You might see it as a comprehension piece if you're familiar with language at primary 5, primary 6 level. And so what we did was we worked with schools to teach them how to help children think about their thinking. Remember I told you that thinking is invisible, so we have to make it visible. So in the application of metacognition, we teach what is called margin metacognition. So this is something that is taught in school now in Singapore, in most schools, to write down whatever comes to your mind as you read the passage. And I want to share with you a story because I work with a lot of teachers, and I was sharing this, one of the teachers started to giggle at the corner of the room. So I was wondering, what did I say that made her giggle? So at the end of that session, I went up to her and I said, and in fact she came up to apologize to me and said, I wasn't laughing at you. I said, I know, I'm not a very funny person to be laughed at. I don't have that humor in me. So, and she said, the reason why I was giggling is because now I understood what the kids were doing. And I said, what do you mean? So back in Singapore, we have the PSLE, the primary 6 leading examination. And she said, I was a marker for PSLE, and some of the papers that I marked for the comprehension section had scribblings like this. And she said, I didn't know what this kid was doing. And I just marked it, and I was wondering, how come there's some papers that looks like this? And then she said, now I know they were actually doing metacognition. And so the next question on my mind was, so how did this student score? Because if you use a method like that, you're supposed to score better. And he said, they're A-star students. They score better than A. So to get an A-star, you need to score 95 and above, I think, or 90 and above. Top of the top. So I said, okay, now I know it works. Because I know it works from theory, we know it works in the classroom. Does it work in the exam? We know it works in the exam. So by doing this, students score better. This is a piece that was given to students, older students, not in Singapore, in another country, and they were given this picture and asked this question. This was taken, I think, can you read the bottom? Taken in 2015 by a photographer. And the photographer posted this on a blog, and the blog had many, many shares, and the blog basically alluded to the fact that a few years after Fukushima, the nuclear power plant kind of collapsed because of the tsunami, the water became radioactive, and this is 173 kilometers southwest of Fukushima, and this photographer took this picture and said, the so-called mutation has gone onto the sunflowers. So you've seen the sunflowers kind of like stuck together. These are real. This photo is not touched up. It's a real photo. And so people started to say, hey, oh my goodness, 173 kilometers away, I'm not going to Japan anymore, I'm going to eat the sashimi. I'm not going to stay there because the mutation has gone south and it's terrible. So students were asked, do you think, first of all, this photo is real? And they said, yeah, I think it's real. And I said, do you think that the conclusion is correct? That mutation has actually gone down to the sunflowers in this city? And 60% of the students said, yeah, I think it's true. And the other students did more research. So first of all, this is about fake news. So earlier on, we mentioned about fake news. So is this fake news? In a sense, it's not fake because the photo is real, but is the conclusion fake? So if you go further and you check, who posted this piece? Is it an amateur, or was it posted by somebody good credentials? And the answer is yes. It's posted by this guy who works for National Geographic, and we know that National Geographic, they don't post rubbish. Right? It's been checked through into the sources and all that. And so the big question remains, is this really due to the radioactivity that caused the mutation? So guess what? This went on to the scientists and the botanists. And scientists and botanists were kind of consulted. And the answer came back to this particular blog, right, to say, unlikely, because they have seen these kind of mutation in places that has no radioactivity. And it is quite normal for some plants, or in fact any plant, to have kind of generic mutation from time to time. And this is not a conclusion that radioactivity has gone down to the city and the city is at risk for having deformities, in all living things. So the answer is no. The point is that we are very easily taken in by all these kind of news. Now, the two things that I showed you, how do we use the 16 habits of mind to do this? By simply having the habit of striving for accuracy. Striving for accuracy doesn't mean simply creating or producing accurate work. It also means that when you research and find out, you go deep. You don't go to the surface level and say, oh, okay, this is written by National Geographic, so it is true. There's a lot of mutation there. You go deeper, level by level. And one of the problems that we face in today's information generation, especially for our kids, is that they do surface thinking and they are lazy to do deep thinking, or that they may not be lazy but they do not know how to do deep thinking. So one of the things that I feel we as adults, as counselors, as guides, as facilitators for the next generation is to teach them to do deep thinking. In order to do that, we have to do deep thinking ourselves.